everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. This week, I'm joined by someone that I would call a good friend. Someone who's a friend of the show, who's a friend of our business, and personally as well, because I've managed to meet this man. Welcome to the show, Mr. Dennis Goedheid, or Goedheid. Welcome.
Good, all good. Thank you so much for having me, Bart.
It's a real pleasure to have you back. We were looking through our notes and we had you on the show roughly about a year and a half ago. And I think from that, I've got to experience some of the incredible things that Casiola does. The energy that you bring to your business, but also to the industry. And it's a real honor to be able to get you back and to talk about where you're at as a business and what's going on. But before we get into it, how are you going?
I'm good. I was actually so happy to be able to welcome you in our office last year, right? Your May conference was in Orlando, our hometown. So it was so much fun to show you around the office.
Yeah, I loved it. And so much so, actually, I'm going to be muting my phone because it just pinged as a thingo. So much so that now I've got the pink phone. I got quite inspired and ran with a bit of branding with a very similar color accent and that sort of thing because I just loved it. I thought it was great, and you guys really captured that. So I don't know. Is it copying, innovating? I don't know. But look, I like what you're doing. It's great. I don't think you would ever take offense to that. I imagine that you'd take it more as a compliment.
We now have our own conference in Australia. How great is that? I've never been there, but yeah.
Well, I do keep on asking you, and I think considering you've got the family that you need to look after, it's a bit of a stretch to get there. But one thing that people do tell me is that they're always looking for an excuse to come to Australia. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be the excuse guy where you're not only coming for pleasure, but also for business as well. So how's business? How are things going?
Well, we can't really complain. I know markets are down, especially if you look at that summer in Orlando. The market average in occupancy was barely above 50%, which is something I've never seen in my
Oh,
10-year
wow.
career in this business. So I know a lot of companies are struggling with occupancy, with ADRs under pressure. But we have been very lucky. Well, I'm not going to call it just luck. I think our teams have been working really, really hard to beat the market, and we're glad that we're outperforming in all markets where we have homes right now. It doesn't happen by itself. Just set it and forget it. Those days are over. It was great in 2022 while it lasted, but now we really have to work hard to earn our business from as well owners as from guests.
Yeah, and it's quite incredible. I've been talking to a few people, and the market is definitely slowed down and it's changing. And what I love as an entrepreneur, those moments are always the most interesting. I remember when COVID hit and everyone started to panic, and my feeling was, well, if anyone's going to win this game, it's me, because that's what we do. We're entrepreneurs. We change, we adapt, we evolve. And I guess if you give up the fight, then that's when you won't succeed. But you're being or doing what you're doing, you're in the best position for change if you are an innovator, if you are doing those sorts of things. And I feel that we've come back to that particular moment where, 2022, like you said, that you just couldn't do anything wrong, really. Like, as long as you put the property on the website or on some OTAs, as long as you get the basics right, you're going to be okay. And now we're back at one of those inflection points where you have to make sure that you're on top of your numbers. You have to make sure that you're looking at what the market's doing, staying competitive, talking to people out there, and coming up with new strategies and new ideas. Not only to kind of beat the market, but also to keep your owners happy, right? Because you're going to lose all the owners if they're not making money.
No, and it also creates like huge opportunities. That's the great thing about every crisis. When everything goes great, right, everybody's growing, but if in a downturn, that's where you can really make the difference. And if you do something different
Mm.
there and you stand out, that's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, yeah. It's just kind of reviewing the business as a whole and that sort of thing. But let's, because we want to talk about that today, and we want to talk about some of those strategies that people can implement in their business over the next little while, things to think about, and things that you're thinking about at Casiola to make a bit of a difference. But can you give us a little bit of an introduction for those that don't know what it is that you do, how big you guys are, what the team sort of looks like? Could you tell everybody a bit more about Casiola?
Yeah, sure. So we are a property management company based in Orlando, Florida. So we started exactly 10 years ago now. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary. And we manage around 450 properties in, as I said, Orlando, but we also expanded into Aruba, Miami, and recently also through our first franchise to Houston, Texas.
Amazing, amazing. And
Yeah,
how many properties roughly at the moment?
around 450.
No, 450. So on our side of the world, that would make you a very large property manager. But having been at VRMA last year, and I remember that someone had done a pulse of the room to see how many properties people have, and they'll go at who's got over 20 in most of the room, who's got over 50 most of the room, who's got over 100 most of the room, who's got over 300 most of the room, and I remember looking around going over 300, all of you folks, and then you get into those thousand sort of range. Tell me, where does the market sit in the US right now with the larger property management companies, and where do you guys fit in?
Yeah, although 450 sounds like a lot for some, we're just a small fish in this market. I know many, yeah, management companies with over 1,000, over 2,000 properties. So, and it's interesting actually. It's in areas that you have never heard of. I know you're not from the US. I'm originally
Yeah.
also from Europe. So sometimes I just talk to people and they're based somewhere that I just didn't know that it existed, and they manage over 1,000 properties. So it's very interesting. And then on the other side, in the Orlando market, which is probably one of the largest in the definitely in the US, but maybe in the world. There's no big player that has over 1,000 properties. So there's so much competition out here that it's
Yeah,
very
right.
hard to get and dominate the market. But yeah, I think we're like I would call us a mid-sized property manager here in the US. So we're definitely not a large one. We're not a small one either. So mid-size.
Tell me a little bit about that actually before we kind of get into what to do next. When we talked last time, we talked about technology and tech stack, and as we grow our companies to a certain size, we then have the revenue and the budget to be able to do different things, right? So we can invest in our business in different ways. So bigger marketing campaigns. We can hire more staff. We can do all sorts of things. We can branch out the business and start up cleaning companies. And there's lots of things that we can do, but we can also invest in our technology. Now, we can buy stuff off of the shelf. So there's hundreds of different tech companies that provide different solutions, or we can hire some IT people and start to build things ourselves that are going to suit our business the way that we see fit. But then we have to, I guess, maintain it as well. Tell me a little bit about that sort of philosophy of growth and when you start to have to think about uh, your entire business and how you're going to strategically create that added value, that secret sauce.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we do use a mix of both, right? So we use as well off the shelf software, and we have our own in-house development team. And the way we look at it is a little bit like we don't want to reinvent the wheel, so we're not going to build our own accounting system and PMS system. There's plenty of options out there, but there's a lot of things that we do want to do that we can't do, and a lot of the software also is like yeah, it's not communicating. together the way we want them to communicate together. Like, for example, your revenue management system together with other software. There's data is like scattered around in all those different systems, and if you want to have a clear overview of your business, sometimes you have to download and merge reports together in spreadsheets, and we didn't really want to do that. So the approach that we took is, hey, we're going to start with the basis that is available there, and we're going to build a layer around it. That's our Casiola intelligence layer. So if there's certain things that we want to offer to as well guests as owners that we can find in the open market, we're going to develop it ourselves. But we're going to build it on top of the existing software. And we have been doing that now, I think, for 7 years. We're coming up to 7 years. And it's really working well. We have created some amazing tools. Also, if we look back when we started 7 years ago, tools that just did not exist in the market that we were able to offer and also use to streamline our operations. And yeah, we always look at it from because it needs to generate money, right? So either it generates extra revenue or it's going to save us expenses because we can do more with less staff. So for us, we don't really look at it as a cost. Like I said, it either generates revenue or it saves us money. And now for us, it's like break-even, or in best case, we have a margin on it. So that's how we look at it, and that has been really working well for us.
And how do you, for that, how do you have some metrics that you use to measure that, or is it more, in general that it'll save you money in the long run, or do you actually have some really hard KPIs or that you guys are working towards when you're making those decisions?
So we try to do a forecast. Now, not everything that you forecast becomes reality, but I know the very, very first project that we did 7 years ago, we were using a PMS, and today almost every PMS offers a solution to sell orphaned nights or early check-ins or late checkouts. But 7 years ago, for us, that was a very, very manual process. Guests had to contact us, ask us if our early check-in was available. We would need to check in the PMS. We said, yes, it's available. It's going to cost you $50, and we will
get the credit card.
Update that manually.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we did is we wanted to automate that, because my team at guest relations was getting buried in all those calls that I thought could be avoided and automated. So what we built is we created a system that would send the guest an email the day before arrival, either telling them that an early check-in was not available. So if it was a back-to-back, we didn't want to get the call from the guest asking if an early check-in was available. We would just tell them, like, unfortunately, for this reservation, an early check-in will not be available, but we're happy to welcome you at 4 p.m. But if it was available, we would offer them a couple of options, like a 10 a.m. check-in for this price and a 2 p.m. check-in for this price, and just with one or two clicks, they could add that to the reservation. So not only save that a lot of time for our guest relations team. So I think as we have grown, we were able to grow with less people than we would have needed 7 years ago. But also it generated a lot more extra revenue, because many people that didn't think about inquiring about early check-ins now all of a sudden got an email with a price, an easy way to add it to the reservation. And they may not have called us to inquire about it, but now that it was there, they just had to click, and bam, it was added to the reservation. So it took us, I think, 3 months to build it from scratch, to set up an API, set up a database. That was the very first thing that we did. So we didn't have like user management. We had to build all that. So it took 3 months. But in year one, it generated, I think, $15,000 to $20,000 in additional revenue in orphan nights and early check-in. So year one may have been break-even, because ITers are not cheap. So if they work for three months on something, it's quite a nice amount of money. But if you look at it now, we're still using that same system
Mm,
today. And I think last year our early check-in, late checkout revenue alone was over $120,000 in 1 year. So for
yeah,
7 years, what took us 3 months to build has been generating revenue now for 7 years, and it only has been growing. And as we expand through franchise, it's only going to get more and create more value for our partners.
for
So
everybody. Yeah,
things like that, at one point we're probably going to have to maintain it or rebuild it or come up with something new. But we know that that is an example of something that's really gonna create
yeah.
more revenue and is worth the investment.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's the airlines have been onto it for many years, and
Yeah,
they're constantly innovating and to earn more revenue. There's a lot of airlines that don't actually make any money on the cost of the actual ticket itself, and it's all on the upsells of the extra leg room and the luggage. And I think here we've got you can if the seat's free next to you, you can pay to make sure that that one stays available rather than necessarily
yeah,
they're moving people around, so all that kind of stuff. Actually, and on that, I'm really curious because you took us down this path, and it's great to understand your philosophy behind it because I think that can really. I think as a business person, when you're ever doing anything, you have to ask yourself why you're doing it. Whenever I'm training my team, especially new starters, we keep it talking about what we're doing and why we're doing it. And then if you keep on sort of peeling the layers of the onion, so why are we doing it? Okay, so why are you doing that? Why are we doing the marketing? Why are we doing all of this? It all comes down to, well, actually, so that you can pay yourself a wage, right? So that you can survive and grow and so that you're earning money. The money is the real important part because without it, you can't actually buy yourself a loaf of bread at the end of the day or pay for your rent. So that kind of philosophy in terms of making decisions as to why you're going to do something and making sure that there's profit in it. It's not just about your ego or because someone else is doing it or because it's just what we do. You can always peel it back to that really base level that can really make decisions a lot easier for you, right?
it does. That's true, but I wouldn't really say that the money is my main driver. There's probably other things that you can do in this world that where you can make more money than
Sure.
property management. Um, I just wanna do fun things and work with fun people around me, and if I can help them make their job more efficient or easier, that means that we have more time to do other things that are more fun. Just answering phone calls 100 times a day, same question like, is an early check-in available? Is an early check-in? There's nothing fun about that. No one, I think, applies for a job to answer the same question over and over again. So, although money is important, if you have bigger budgets, you can do more fun stuff. But I just want to enjoy what I'm doing, and I don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again. So, if we come across certain situations where we have to repeat similar actions, we just want to automate it.
Yeah, amazing. And as the more and more we're talking, the more questions I have about the technology side of things. So
Yeah.
what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep down this path, and we're going to readjust this episode to that topic because it's so important, and it will actually lean into creating a more resilient business. Is making sure that your technology is actually absolutely in the right way. I remember you talking to me quite specifically about when we're talking about the Casiola franchise, is the technology is a huge part of the offering. It's actually we've got this technology that a lot of other companies don't have, and I think that because you're a property management company first, not a technology company first, you're really working on those specific problems that a property manager might have, and then developing the technology behind it. And am I right in saying that? And is that a philosophical thing? And what kind of difference does it make in terms of the decisions that you guys make around
Yeah.
tech?
No, absolutely. Everything we built we did because we needed it. We were not building them for anyone else. If you're a software provider, every property management company, although we all do the exact same thing, we all do it a little bit differently. So as a software provider, you have to come up with tools and features that fits all those different business models. Now, all the things that we have built are built just for our business model. And as we expand through franchise, we're trying to replicate that same business model so that there's a standard in operating, just like hotels do. And the software that we have built is really custom made for the way we operate. So that makes
Mm.
it really efficient and fun to use if you have a solution but it doesn't fit entirely into your business model. If you to come up with some workarounds or manual actions, then it loses a little bit of the value. But everything that we've done is really built around the way we operate. And just to give you an example, is like your operational software, like inspections
Mm.
and cleaning reports. I know a lot of people use Breezeway, for example, and are big fans of the software. But it is still a standard software that you have to mold around your business, or you have to adjust your business a little bit to work with what they offer. Now, what we have done, we work with what we call portfolio managers. So we have people that are responsible for a portfolio of homes, usually between 20 and 40 to 50 homes, depending on the size and the workload. So we have centralized everything around the portfolio managers. So they have their own housekeeping team, they have their own maintenance team, they have their own set of preferred vendors, and they have to work together with all those different team members. And the software is really built around them, and they have all the information that they need on one dashboard. With a few clicks, they can create like callback cleans for their housekeepers, or they can add additional maintenance requests, or reach out to their vendor. So that makes it really easy and efficient for them to use the software. Now, there may be other options out there that where you can create maintenance tickets, and then someone else needs to assign them to
Mm.
certain maintenance tech or to a vendor. In our world, in our software ecosystem, that's all automated because we know how our structure works. We have portfolio managers. On their day off, their portfolio gets assigned automatically to an inspector, and there's a lot less manual work involved there, and smoother, less mistakes. If a work order comes in for a certain home, like guest relations get a call, like sink is leaking in a certain property, they don't need to think like, oh, who's working today, who's which shift is on, what's his phone number. No, they just create a work order in the system, assign it to a property, and it automatically reroutes it to the right person that is working on that day in that area, and is the closest by to the property. So that just avoids mistakes and delays, and makes that we can do more with less people.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. So there's a few things that I want to unpack, and maybe you can help me explain as well, because I think for a lot of people, what we're talking about might feel completely out of reach and unattainable, right? I don't know that much about tech. I don't have the budget to invest in all of this. The setup that Dennis has just talked about, that's not how we do business as well. So this is irrelevant, but it's not. I think the key takeaways here is that you need to look at things that you're doing that are repetitive, that might be boring, that you can add some level of automation to. That you're like, you know what, I don't need to be doing this. The computer could do it for me, or rather than moving data from one spreadsheet to another, or from an accounting system to that system, why doesn't the data not move across? So I don't have to do it all the time. For us, it's accounting. For us, even if we're building a new website for somebody, there's so many points where we're doing the same thing over and over again. When we have
Mhm.
to move a domain name, for example, then there's all this whole process that it has to go through, and there's all these steps. So when you're looking at your business, look at all the different steps and say, hey, we're always getting phone calls from a client at this particular moment. We're having issues with our cleaners, always calling us, or we're never able to do the inspections correctly. And the point being here is that I don't think, Dennis, you're saying, hey, go and build yourself software, because that's something that you can do. But it's creating better links between software that you are using. So you might have your property management system and then your cleaning system, but yet there is data that you're lacking, or there's information that's just not coming through that you need to pull. And there are tools out there that will do that for you, where you don't even need any programming or development skill that will actually pull the data across.
Mhm.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that? If I summarized it well for people, or if I missed something completely?
No, that's absolutely right. And I remember in the beginning years, a lot of things have gotten easier and better
Mm,
over the years, right? But in the beginning, you had all those different software systems. But a good example still today is user management. Why do you, if Bart, if you join Casiola tomorrow and I need to create an account for you as a team member, I most property managers have to do that in maybe on average 7, 8, 9 different
mm,
systems. You have to create a user in like in revenue management, in the PMS, in
yeah,
like Google or Microsoft account, all those different software systems, you need to create the same user over and over and over again. So we're always looking like, hey, what can we do so we don't have to do that? And we use a lot. Wherever we can, we use like a single sign-on provider. We use Google, so everything is based on Google. But I don't know why all those PMS systems and even revenue management system and data systems, and why don't they use the same services and make it easier for everyone? They all have their own user management, but
uh,
if
the
someone
dream,
leaves your company, I have a whole checklist. Oh, I need to
the
remove them from this, from
the
this, from this, from this. If
the
I just
dream.
have single sign on, I remove them at one spot and they are logged out and cancelled in all those different systems. It's those kind of things that people don't think about, but that take up so much of your time. And as you grow and scale, before you know it, that means an extra full-time equivalent just doing those kind of things. So you want to avoid that as much as possible, and it's in the small things. If there is single sign-on available, use it, because it makes
Yeah,
life
sure.
so much easier. And if it's not available, ask your provider to build it, because it's those tasks that no one thinks is really fun, and it's just not necessary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love it. So let's talk about the future and technology a little bit. And you guys have built a bunch of tools. We since we talked, I think I don't November 20 thing. So I think that ChatGPT might have been launched before we talked. I think last time. Anyway, the point being is that the advent of AI, it's very strong. Chatbots, reviews, listings, optimization, and that sort of stuff. Um, and that technology is only going to get more and more prominent, more and more important in our business for scale and that sort of thing. Where are you guys heading in terms of the technology, and how important do you think it will be?
Well, I think it's gonna be very important. Now you also have to be careful. We've got some examples of AI experiments going wrong, and I'm thinking about the Verbo fiasco, where they were gonna decide or let AI decide which should be the main photo for each property. So
I haven't
where
heard about this.
Oh, you haven't heard that? Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that was a thing. So they did a big announcement that you could no longer decide the sorting order of your
Oh,
photos. They were going to let AI do that. And
wow.
after 1 week, they rolled it back, and it hasn't been brought back yet. So there's things we're trying to be very careful. We use it, for example, for property descriptions, photo captions, responding to reviews, and then especially the good reviews. Because if you get if you get many 5-star reviews, what do you say after a while? I can say thank you for your review, appreciate your support, but after 500 5-star reviews, you need some more
Mm.
inspiration, and AI is great at that to come up with a nice answer that's always a little bit different than that really makes it personalized on where the guests were staying, what feedback they gave. So we are using it a lot, but not up to a level that I think we will be in the next few years. I've seen some demos from PMS systems where where you can just enter and say like, hey, increase the cleaning fees for all my 5-bedroom homes with a pool by 5%, for example, instead of us manually going into the PMS and doing it one by one. So that's the end result where we want to get one day, but we're still not there, and it's probably going to take a few more years. But we're definitely looking at it. We're using it on a daily basis, but I think we can do a lot more with it in the future.
Yeah, I think so. And what about the? So I've got just so many thoughts that went through my mind as you're saying all of that, and I like the idea that you're using natural language to run your business, right? Or to use the AI to tell you what you wanted to do, right? And with that as well, not only increasing prices, right, but asking questions about the business. How did we do last month? How do we do 3 months ago? How did different things compare, and where do we have holes in the business? Can you predict any kind of potential issues in the future with our pricing? How's the market doing overall? What are your suggestions and recommendations? And that's all stuff that's gonna come through. And I think that as we kind of smash through this episode, I think it kind of comes back to a point that we were talking about at the start. Is when we're under duress, then we need to innovate and things need to change. And one of the things that you mentioned was revenue management. And now most property management companies will be using some level of pricing software, revenue management software.
I hope they
And
do by now.
yeah, that's right. But I would say that there's a massive part of the market that isn't using it. I would say that. But anyhow, let's we won't go there. But let's say everyone's using dynamic pricing. Let's say everyone's using a great property management system, and let's say they're using all the AI and stuff. Then they need to do different things to innovate. And now, right now, we're at this inflection point where, as you said, ADRs are down. So that's the average daily rate. So people are paying less for rooms effectively. You can't charge as much as you were a year ago. Otherwise, you won't be a market and everyone's going to be less expensive than you. So you have to do new things to innovate, to change, to stay ahead of the market, to make sure you're still getting bookings even though the market's down. What would you suggest people look at, and potentially what are you guys doing as well to try to innovate and stay ahead of the market?
Yeah. Something that we are really big on in the past year, and we're seeing great results of that so far, is ranking optimization on the different OTAs. I know a lot of people have heard about SEO, so search engine optimization for their website on Google. So a lot of people are familiar with that and have been doing it or paying someone to do it for many years. But I think that's now the next big thing on OTAs. So you can do the same thing for Airbnb and Booking.com and Verbo and so on. So certain things, change certain things in your listings so that you would show up higher in the ranking. And usually the higher you rank, if you're on page one, you're most likely going to get more bookings than if you're on page 100.
Mm,
That is something that we have been putting a lot of efforts in the last year. It's not easy to do at scale. So, like small operators have definitely an advantage there because it goes about changing the order of photos, changing headlines, changing descriptions,
mm,
doing promotions, increasing your commission, maybe temporary, having different rate plans, all those different things that you can do to boost ranking on an Airbnb or booking.com. But then also, it sounds very easy, like, hey, let's do this because option A works better than option B. But it's not that easy because you also don't want to like overperform on certain channels. So if you do something and you see your conversion on Airbnb going up and up and up, at a certain point you have to stop that again a little bit and make sure that you also still get bookings on booking.com or on
yeah.
Verbo, because once you get all your bookings from one channel, the other channels or your ranking on the other channels are just gonna plummet, and you're gonna be too dependent on that one listing. And if you get a few bad reviews or they suspend your listing, you may lose all your revenue. So it's a constant game of keeping that
Mm,
balance between the different channels, but also making sure that you are ranking as high as possible by having enough conversions, making sure that you have at least one booking a month on each and every channel. All those different metrics that go into it. It's really interesting and fun to watch, especially if it works, doing those A/B tests, seeing what works, what doesn't, then applying it to other properties. And I think we really made big progress on there in our performance. Everybody's doing revenue management, and we obviously are also still
sure.
doing that. But just doing that is not enough anymore to really outperform the market, because everybody's doing basically the same as
Sure.
you are.
Sure. And I think particularly in a market like the one that you're in, because it's just so competitive. So, you've got so much product which is like for like. So you do have to compete on those things to sort of make sure that you stay ahead. But for the A/B testing, for measuring this sort of stuff, so it's all good and well changing things. And if you look at one property individually, you're just not going to have enough data points to make any sort of decisions. And actually, if you want statistically significant information, then the property management and its nature is really problematic because you just don't have enough data.
Hmm.
You can go on a hunch, but it's not
Yeah,
really scientifically valid saying that
yeah,
that you've done the right thing or not the right thing. And plus, you've got so many variables where your A/B test is never really going to be an A/B test, right? Because you just don't have enough data points to make it to figure it out. But you can see patterns, right? And that's what we're talking
yeah.
about. So,
And certain channels make it easier than others. Like, for example, on booking.com, you can see your ranking in a certain market. They tell you exactly like your
sure.
number 200 out of 1500 in this market. And if you change certain things, you can see it go up or down. Good example is your minimum length of stay. I don't think a lot of people have a one night minimum length of stay in most leisure markets. But what we have implemented is going to that one night, but at very high rates. So we know we're not very likely to get a one night booking, but just by having only a one night requirement, we're going to rank higher. And we can really see that if we look at those metrics in booking.com or use software for other websites like a Rank Breeze for Airbnb. You can really see the impact of that. Cancellation policies is another example. The more flexible your cancellation policy, the higher you're gonna rank. Those are things that we actually found out the hard way by doing it the other way around. Implementing
Mm.
stricter cancellation policies and seeing our bookings dry up almost immediately. So that's also an A/B test, right? So these kind of things you figure out, but yeah, there's so much that you can do, and I know most managers are not on top of that. They're doing pricing management, but they're not looking at their listings in the
The
different
SEO on
OTAs.
there.
And
Yeah.
Airbnb works completely different than Booking.com or Verbo. So you really need to specialize in each and every of those individual channels.
And just two questions, and as we come towards wrapping up for today, are you using any software for this? And you did mention RankBreeze. And the second question, so any software. The second question is, how are you measuring uh, the success of what you're doing? So you said, okay, so you can see it on the website, but how are you then documenting that so that you can then just be more scientific about what you're doing, and to have a hypothesis, test it, and then prove a point either way, and then document that data so you know that you can run with it for more properties.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a lot of questions to answer in one. So we do use several services, and it goes from basic ones like a key data and AirDNA to see your market position. So we know the market goes up and down, so you cannot really compare with your performance in the previous year, but we try to outperform the market. And the wider we can make that percentage, if we did like 10% performance last year and now we can do 12 or 13 or 15%, then we know that we're doing better than the year before. And yeah, to do those things at scale, there's part existing software that we use. There's certain things that we build in house. We're also using a company called Automizer from Europe that is specialized in ranking optimization for hotels and on OTAs like Booking.com. They also have their own systems that they use. And yeah, it's just a lot of trial and error. Like I mentioned, certain OTAs show you the
The
ranking
results, yeah.
improvements if you do certain things, but not everything is that easy to really qualify in a metric, and you need to do a lot of tests and give it some time to see if it works or not. But in the end, our ref bar is the ultimate North Star metric to see if things are working. And I'm not going to say, oh, it's just because of our minimum length of stay or just because the cancellation policy. It's a combination of all those factors that we take into account. We try to look at all of them individually. But in the end, to really make a difference, you need to do multiple things together, and that's really gonna do enough to give that boost in ranking and also conversion in bookings.
Yeah, and I mean the good thing with doing the SEO for an OTA is really the conversion is the biggest factor that's going to contribute things. If your conversion rate is through the roof, then they're going to rank you higher, and if it's terrible, they're not going to rank you as high.
Yeah,
And then there's all those metrics that go behind it, be it reviews as well, and making sure that
yeah.
you've got good reviews and everything else. So,
Now you do
um,
want to do that without sacrificing your rates, right? Because you can say, "Hey, I just dropped my
mm,
rates and my conversion is going to increase," which is usually the case. But yeah, you're going to make less money, and that's not what you want. That's not what the owner wants. So we really put a lot of effort in getting the highest possible ADRs by doing all that other stuff too, so that we don't have to lower our rates. Lowering the rates is actually the last thing that we do if a listing is really not performing. The last thing we do is lowering rates. We try everything else first, and if nothing else works, we have
doing the
to
rates,
lower
yeah.
rates or run promotions or something like
Yeah.
that.
Beautiful. Dennis, we're pretty much running over time now. So
Yeah. Sorry for that.
no. The problem is that we could go for another hour or two, and I think that's why it was so great to meet up with you face to face, have some lunch, and I think we're just talking, and then all of a sudden, Bart, it's time to leave. Well, no. So I'll see you soon at VRMA, and we can resume some conversations. And look, I really appreciate you coming on, spending your time sharing some of your insights, and I know that some of these insights as well are super proprietary, right? So folks, you are getting the real deal, and that's the kind of character Dennis is. Because the great thing is, I think that doing stuff like this and sharing it pushes you guys to keep innovating and keeping ahead of what you just told me for the next episode, and to keep your business growing. But folks, if you are tuned in to this on Apple or Spotify, make sure you leave us a review. It does make a difference. I'm talking to you. Make sure that you do it. It makes a difference. We don't have enough reviews at the moment. So if you can spare, if you've listened to more than one or two episodes, you're like, hey, I've got some value out of it, just jump on, leave us a review and say, hey, I love the podcast, providing great value. And that's going to help us rank higher on the podcast list. And also, if you're not subscribed on YouTube, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Mr. Dennis, what's the best way for people to engage with you, engage with Casiola, continue the conversation? Is it a LinkedIn ad? Are we following you on Instagram? What is the
Yeah,
best way?
absolutely. I post a lot of the things that we do on LinkedIn. So it's just my name on LinkedIn, or you can follow Casiola. They also repost the things that I post once in a while, or the other way around. So I think that's the best way to stay up to date about industry insights and updates. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Take care, buddy. Have a good rest of the day. And I'm sure this is not the last time we'll be doing this.
And one day we see each other live in Australia.
That's
Hopefully soon.
right. That's right. I'll get you over somehow. Thank you very much, sir. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.